Hi everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video review. This time we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Aztron Nova. This is a foldable, small, compact board, and it very much does hit a very competitive price on the market. The specifications for this board, it's 10 foot long, it's 32 inches wide, it's 6 inches thick, it brings the volume at 275 litres, it weighs 9 kilograms just the board itself, and it retails at an astonishing price of £349 or 349 euros. And for that price you do actually get a complete package. You get a leash, a 4-piece paddle, a double action pump, and of course you get a bag as well. The construction of this board is very similar to the other Aztron boards in the range. It is a double chamber board still, so you have an internal chamber which you have to inflate first to 15 psi, and then you inflate the outer chamber to 15 psi too. The other boards in the Aztron range have double chambers as well, but they are much bigger, longer double chambers which give you a little bit more stiffness and performance. The internal core of the board is still made of drop stitch, and it's still finished off with a colourful graphic and well-made materials like the other Aztrons. Now for 2020 we have actually changed the way we're going to do the inflatable boards when we're doing SUPboarder reviews. So if you've seen one of our SUPboarder inflatable board reviews before, you will notice that this review and the reviews on from this will all be very different. We're going to be looking at slightly different things, and we're going to be approaching it in a different way. So let's move away from the stuff you can find on the internet and on the catalogues, and let's move on to our SUPboarder impressions of this board. First off, let's talk about the bag. So this board in its bag is actually a smaller overall size than many other iSUPs on the market. The overall size of the bag with the board in it is 560 centimeters by 400 centimeters by 350 centimeters. And the complete package weight with the board, pump, paddle, everything included in the bag weighs 12 kilograms. The comfort of the bag, now it is a fairly basic bag, as in there isn't any padding around the back area, there is light padding around the shoulders, but to be fair, the bag actually does fit very comfortably on your back. And when we walked with it a moderate distance, maybe 1.5 miles, we didn't find that the board was digging or rubbing in. Yes, you could do with a little bit more padding, would actually help around the back area, but it wasn't an uncomfortable board to carry in the bag. It does come with a chest strap, which we did find a little bit tight, and for the ladies you might find it a little bit high and you might actually want to have that lower, and at the moment you can't actually change that on the bag itself. When you turn up to the beach or your paddling location and you want to unroll and inflate this board, it's a fairly simple process to do. You're going to inflate the center chamber first to 15 psi, then you can move on to the outer valve and do the same to 15 psi. It does come with a double action pump, which is a slightly smaller pump than the other Aztron pumps. It works on the upstroke and on the downstroke, and it does get the air into the board. It's not the quickest of pumps because the board has got a fairly big amount of volume, but you can get the higher pressure into the pump really quite easily. And you can pump up most of the board using the full double action of the pump. But to finish the board off, if you want to switch to single action, you can just take the red nozzle out the back and the pump will then just work on the downstroke. And then all you've got to do is turn the board over and put in the fins. Now the fins are a completely different system that we've seen on any other brand. Yes, we have seen clip systems similar to this, but the actual feel of the plastic, the stiffness of the fin, and the quality of the fitting really did impress us. It does seem like a very strong and sturdy clip-in fin system, and we were very impressed with the quality of that fin system, especially for the price point of the board. Both the fins are 5 inches deep and they have a nice amount of base on them, which helps with the tracking, which we'll talk about in a minute. So the package comes as standard with a nice coiled leash. The thing we like about all the Aztron leashes, it's nice because the leash can be worn around your ankle or around your calf. Generally, when I'm flat water paddling, I would rather have my leash up higher around my calf than my ankle. And this is just because when I put the board in the water, if I have my leash around my ankle, the leash will get wet and then I'll have a colder ankle for the rest of my SUP session. And the board is finished off with a very sturdy stainless D-ring fitted at the back there, which is where you attach your leash. Now moving on to carrying the board to the water. The nice thing is the handle's in the perfect balance point, so it's nice and easy to hold. It's not too far forward, not too far back, which you do sometimes see on the cheaper price point boards. The handles aren't in the right place, and it does make it a real pain if you're carrying your board long distances to the water. The nice thing about the Nova is the handle is actually offset, so the board can be folded in half. This is really good because it gives you two options. If you've got longer arms like myself, I can hold the board on the longer handle position, and if you've got shorter arms, you can turn the board over and you can hold it from the shorter side to make it a little bit easier to carry. It's a nice little feature this, that until you've used it, you realize how nice it is to give you that little bit of flexibility when you're carrying your board to the water. The board is 6 inches thick, so lighter, smaller people might find that the board stands out a little bit more under your armpit than a thinner 4-inch or 5-inch thick board would do. Now let's move on to what it's like on the water. First off, looking at the overall shape and what does that give you for the stability and the performance of the board. Well, because it's 32 wide, you've got a nice amount of width, so it makes it nice and stable, and you've got a nice round nose up at the front there, which is also great for helping the stability. If you have a more pointy, pulled in nose, it might be faster, but it won't be as stable. And the same is true with the back. The more pulled in or pointy the back is, the faster it may be, but the less stable it'll be. So it's got a nice round tail, so obviously a good amount of overall stability. Under your feet, you've got your EVA deck pad. 4mm EVA deck pad goes right to the back, and it's split in half, obviously, so you can fold the board and it doesn't crease your deck pad. The deck pad's comfortable, and it's definitely fine on this board for the sort of paddling you're going to be doing. The nice thing about the double chamber on this board is it is directly under where you are standing with your feet, so it gives you a good amount of stability and a solid platform directly under where your feet are. The longer double chambers will give you an overall better stiffness, but this smaller double chamber still gives the board a good stiff feeling. We'll talk more about stiffness in a second in our deflection test. So the board's thickness is 6 inches. Now the advantage of having a 6-inch thick board is it's going to be able to take a lot of weight. You're going to be able to get on this as a heavier paddler. The disadvantage is you are a little bit higher off the water, and you can sometimes feel a little bit detached from your paddling experience, especially if you are a lighter paddler, because you don't generally need the thickness. But the other advantage of a 6-inch thick board compared to a 4 or 5-inch thick board is you don't actually have to get so much air in it to get it as stiff. So if you're pumping this board up to 15 psi at 6 inches thick, it should feel as stiff as a 5-inch thick board pumped up to 19 or 20 psi, but of course you've got to get that air in the board overall. So that moves us on nicely to our deflection test, which is where we put the board on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and then we put a weight of 75 kilograms in the center. This board was pumped up to 15 psi on the internal chamber and 15 psi and the external chamber. The deflection of the board was 19 millimeters, which at 15 psi is a reasonable drop. The stiffest boards are sitting around the sort of 8 or 9, and the most flexible boards on the market are sitting around the 25, 26. But always bear in mind, when it comes to deflection, the boards that are dropping 8 or 9 millimeters may be 3, 4, 5 times the price of this actual board, and they may actually weigh more as well. So it's always something to keep in mind. So the board does feel fairly stiff overall and under the standing area because of the small double chamber section. But what does it paddle like in a straight line? How much glide does it have? How good is the tracking? Because whenever you have smaller fins opposed to one bigger central fin, the tracking can be affected. The fins that Aztron have fitted are nice and stiff, and they have a wide amount of base, which really helps you go in a straight line. It isn't going to give you as much tracking as a longer board would do, but having the 2 fins really does help you. And for general paddling and beginner paddlers, the tracking isn't really an issue. The glide is to be expected with a board like this. Being 10 foot long, you are only going to have a certain amount of glide. The longer the board is, the more glide you're going to have. But it's easily going to take you down the coast, down the river, doing a little adventure without a problem, being only a 10 foot long board. But because the board is only 10 foot long, it does make turning around, maybe doing step back turns, learning how to do buoy turns, much easier, and easier to pivot around the back of the board. The longer the board is, the better straight line tracking is going to be, the better glide you're going to have, but the harder you're going to find to turn it. Looking at the actual fittings of the board, you've got a nice bungee up at the front there, which is a good size, put in the right place so you could put your dry bag, drinks, flip-flops under the front, stainless D-rings that are all nicely color-coded in with the board, and the actual look and the styling of the board does look pretty cool, and it really fits in the Aztron range well. Looking at the 4-piece paddle you get, it is a 4-piece paddle, so it can go in the bag a little bit easier. It's a full adjustable paddle. It's an aluminium shaft with a plastic blade. The blade is nice hard wearing, so it can take the knocks on the beach. Maybe the kids might use it as a shovel. It isn't the most refined blade shape on the world. It's completely adequate for the package and the price point you have, and the paddle does fit together nice and easy. So who do we think it will best suit? Who could paddle this, and what weight range, and what would you be using it for? Well, you can use it for pretty much anything you want to. Generally all-round paddling fun, bit of coastal cruising, mucking about with the family, maybe a bit of light surfing, because those fins are nice and stiff and out on the rails. It will be able to handle a few bumps and catch a few waves nice and easy. Ability of rider, definitely it's going to be the beginners. It's nice, it's 32 wide, it gives you a good amount of stability, so beginner is going to jump on this as a first time SUP, no problem. Weight wise, because of the thickness, it's going to be able to take a lot of weight. could quite happily take 110, 115 kilo rider if you've come into paddling before. Maybe if it's your first time paddleboard and you're that sort of weight, you might want to go something a little bit wider, but generally comfortable weights are really around the sort of 80 to 95 kilos, not really a problem. The reason I'm saying those more higher weights opposed to the sort of 50 or 60 kilo people, many lighter paddlers do generally prefer thinner baseboards because they don't actually need the big volume for their own body weight. So now if we look at deflating and packing the board up, you've got to deflate the two chambers. You will have to actually put your pump in the deflation setting so you can actually suck the air out of the board. It doesn't take a long time, but you have got to do it, opposed to if you have an inflation valve that's right at the nose or the tail of the board and you can roll the air out. So you're gonna have to suck the air out of the board. The good thing about that is then when you roll the board up, you can get it nice and compact, nice and tight around the pump. Now we actually rolled it up around the pump from the nose all the way to the tail, and we didn't find that a problem at all, but the brand does actually recommend rolling it around from the pump but from the fins towards the nose. But the board went in the bag very easily and we didn't have any problem with it at all, and all the accessories go in that bag nicely as well. The brand Aztron themselves are a newer base brand when it comes to SUP, but they have been making paddleboards for many years, and they have got a big range of boards in the Aztron range, from hard boards, inflatable boards, surfboards. They've got clothing range, they've got wetsuits, they've got a big range of equipment and boards in there. We've already reviewed some of their touring and all-round boards last year, and we will be doing a general overview of the Aztron range in January. All the Aztron boards come with a 1-year warranty, and if you've seen some of our SUPboarder inflatable reviews before, you'll notice that this video is different in the way it's laid out and some of the questions that we're answering. And one of the questions that we're going to be answering from this video and all videos onwards is we're going to be looking at the environmental awareness of the boards, the brands and the packaging. As with Aztron, they no doubt they will be looking at the environmental awareness, but at the moment there isn't any products or materials in this board that have recyclable properties, and the packaging that the board comes with, apart from a cardboard box, isn't recyclable or biodegradable. We will be talking about environmental awareness and packaging in all our iSUP videos for future. So finishing off now with pros and cons, value for money, and a little summary of the Aztron Nova. Well, the pros to the board, well, it is a good outline shape. It's going to be great for beginners to get into the sport, or intermediate paddlers just to have a more foldable, compact, smaller board in the back of the car all the time. The materials on the board are good. It looks well made. Everything is stuck down nicely, and there definitely isn't any bits of deck pad or quality issues that we're concerned about. Having the smaller double chamber is nice to have in the middle of the board, and it does give you that added stiffness, especially just under your feet. One of the big standout features for us has got to be the sliding clip fin system. This is one of the neatest, coolest fin systems we've seen, and it seems very sturdy and very stiff and hard wearing, and I don't think there's going to be many problems with that, and even the kids could be jumping on these fins and I don't think they'll break them. Cons to the board and package, well, the backpack could have a little bit more padding around the back area. It is still comfortable, and for the price point is completely acceptable. The board is 6 inches thick, so it is going to be better for the heavier base riders and give you a better paddling feeling than somebody of sort of 60 or 70 kilos. If for the 60 or 70 kilo person, if they made this in 4 inches or 4.5 inches thick, this board would be a standout board for you as well. As we said, the fin system is really cool and it does seem very hard wearing, but because the fins come off this board, it would be great if the fins themselves were actually a little bit bigger, because it would only help the beginners get a bit more straight line tracking out of this board. This board does track alright, but a bigger fin would make it even easier again. Value for money, well, I think you're going to be able to answer that question. It is an extremely cheap price point board, and the overall package you get is actually very good for that price point. The board seems well made, and it's nice that it goes into a smaller bag, so you're going to be able to transport it nice and easy. And for the price point, I really don't think you can fault it. In summary, the Aztron Nova is a very competitive, smaller, packed down iSUP, but it's also going to be an iSUP that's going to get you onto paddling for the first time. All weights of riders are going to be able to paddle and use this, but the 80 kilos plus sort of range of riders will get really the most out of it. It's a really cool looking board, and for the price point, it is one that we're going to see a lot of in the water this summer. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed the review of the Aztron Nova and you found it interesting and informative. If it's helped you on your buying decisions, if this board is right for you, please give this video a like or a comment below. If you haven't been on SUPboardermag.com, go check it out. There's loads of SUP stuff on there. And if you're mad keen on SUP, definitely go and check out SUPboarder Pro, where we do more head-to-head tests and loads more technique videos that you don't see on YouTube. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on another SUPboarder video.